I'm prefacing this by saying that my female 32, husband 34, is the only child in the family. His mom always wanted a grandbaby, and unfortunately, she was never able to become a grandmother as my husband was married before and his ex was unable to have kids. He also tried adoption while single but couldn't. So when we found out that we were expecting, mother-in-law started visiting daily. We didn't do that in the past. Started bringing stuff for the baby and spent a lot of money. My son is now a few weeks old. Mother-in-law retired right after he was born and told us she was making herself free and available for her grandbaby. She stayed with me for a whole 2 weeks and only went home recently. Those 2 weeks were unbearable, with her being all over me to get to the baby. I was getting fed up, but I kept my mouth shut and played nice. Then she started complaining about missing her grandbaby and not being able to see him every day and watch him grow. Finally, she sent me a list called Visitation Time. In this list, she mentioned when we're expected to bring the baby to her, 5 days a week, and spending the weekend with her, hours from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., and said she had a bottle ready for feeding and a closet full of diapers. Not just that, but she wants them overnight on Monday and Wednesday. That's 2 nights a week. Now, as a new mom, I couldn't imagine having my newborn son away from me for that long, especially overnight. So I called her to give her my response, which was a no, but she ranted about how I needed to loosen up and stop being unreasonable and emotionally too attached. This made me angry, not gonna lie. So I took her list and used scissors to shred it into pieces. Then I took a picture of the paper shred and sent it to her, hoping she'd get the message and get how serious I am about my no. Apparently, she cried to my husband and the whole family because they claimed I was trying to keep her only grandbaby away from her after she waited so long to have him. And my husband went off on me after coming home from work to call my move childish and pathetic. I still keep getting backlash over this, and now I'm starting to think maybe I'm in the wrong for how I behaved the entire interaction with her. But I was trying to enforce my boundaries after she brushed them off. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your mother-in-law is crazy. This lady isn't just asking to take a newborn away from its mother. She's asking to replace its mother. That's crazy enough. But then when mom reasonably and very predictably says no, this mother-in-law keeps pushing for it. It is your baby. She isn't entitled to any control over your baby. You could tell her she isn't allowed to see him at all, and she wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Plus, she called OP unreasonable and too emotionally attached to her brand new baby, while demanding to see that baby almost more often than its parents. That woman is mental. If she's desperate enough, she might try and sue for grandparents' rights. Probably and hopefully won't work, considering how young the baby is, and testimony from both parents about how she is, but it's something she could try. Let this be a warning to you not to give in to her custody schedule. She will use it later as proof of her grandparents' rights. But you have to play this right. Sending the photo made you look bad and left proof of how mean you are for mother-in-law to show your husband. Instead, ignore her communication with you as much as possible. Make your plans for your son. Use Do Not Disturb to avoid being distracted by her communication. And don't take your child to mother-in-laws unless your husband is present. You aren't responsible for nurturing a relationship between mother-in-law and your child. Mother-in-law can visit you and your family when it's convenient for you. You don't owe it to her to take your child there. I can see where your husband might have thought you were childish with the photo you sent his mom. Your mother-in-law was way out of line, but instead of stooping to her crazy, take the high road and ignore it. No point giving mother-in-law any ammunition, not worth the stress. Stop it. The baby rabies is strong with mother-in-law. Grandma is bonkers, and OP's husband needs to stop being such a mama's boy and defend his still recovering from childbirth wife. OP is not the idiot. I live in a house in a semi-rural area. Think acre lots, not farmland. I moved in a year ago with just me and my dog. Neighbors are typical suburban types with the American flag on a pole, nice lawn, etc. I don't pay much attention to them. Last night their kids were setting off fireworks, driving my dogs crazy. I went out and asked them to please stop, since I thought the fireworks were probably illegal and it was causing a nuisance to the entire neighborhood. They told me they would be done in 10 minutes. So I went in and called the fire department, and they said that since I was in the county, the fireworks were not illegal. I figured I'd have to wait it out and cuddle my dogs, but I couldn't take it anymore when the fireworks were still happening 20 minutes later. I went and grabbed both my hoses and sprayed down the unused fireworks through our shared fence. They said I ruined $1,000 worth, and I asked how it would be 10 minutes with that much. He said it was none of my business. He said he was calling the police. I said, fine, go ahead, and his wife dragged him inside. I don't think I did anything wrong. I think I tried to work with them, and they lied to me. It wasn't fair to my dogs what they were doing. Am I the idiot? Edit. So the cops just left my house after a 7 a.m. visit, and the result is I may be charged with misdemeanor destruction of property. You are the idiot. So you ruined their holiday because you were annoyed you had to comfort your dogs? I hugged my dogs for hours last night as neighbors shot fireworks off from all directions, and they are illegal in my state. But I minded my damn business because it's no different than a massive bout of thunder. My dogs will survive, and people can celebrate, especially considering how holidays have been for people the last 2 to 3 years. You sound like a miserable idiot trying to spread the misery. Considering the cops will charge you, I don't see how you could think you did nothing wrong. Are you an adult? Maybe next time you'll think twice. You tried to tell people what they could do on their property and ruin their holiday. You could have done about 1,000,000 things before dousing their fireworks. Everyone's the idiot here. Neighbors should have been honest or even given you a warning before the fireworks. But you did something technically illegal. You could have tried talking to them again or calling the cops to complain about the noise. You would have hopefully been in a lot less crap then. My dad has passed away, and I've gotten all of his inheritance. My dad raised us in a strict military-style household. He was a horrible father who took things to the extreme in our childhood, and all of his children stopped talking to him. He treated us like we were his property and belittled us all the time, almost as if he hated our existence. He actually disowned me when I was 15 because I got pregnant out of marriage with a man who was black and kicked me out to fend for myself. So I had to figure out how to provide for myself and my child. My dad ended up contacting me a month after my mom passed away, crying and apologizing for how he treated my siblings and me, and asked if we could meet up. So I decided to meet up with my dad because even though he wasn't the greatest father, it didn't change my love for him. When we met up, my dad seemed very genuine, so I continued seeing him, increasing to seeing him 3 times a week. My dad also tried contacting my siblings, but none of them gave him the time of day. I spoke to them about the issue, and they told me to allow him to die a lonely death. Later on, my dad got super sick, and I ended up moving in with him with my 2 children to help take care of him. I learned things about my dad that I never knew, and I started to love being around him and seeing him as a different person. I chose to forgive him. It was hard looking after my dad and 2 children as a single mother, but I pushed myself through it until his death. But during the hard times, I asked my siblings for help, and they both mocked me for even helping my dad, told me I should throw him in an old age home, and even asked me to take pictures of him so they could see him weak. My siblings and my relationship used to be super close, but they've become distant ever since I started talking to my dad. Now that my dad has passed, I inherited everything from him and learned that my father owned a lot more properties and had a lot more money than I could have ever imagined. My siblings feel like they're entitled to some of the inheritance and have told me if I don't give them any, they'll stop talking to me and that I'm becoming like my dad. Since they had to go through having my dad as a father, they feel they deserve some payout. I disagree with them. The reason I got the inheritance is that I gave my dad another chance. I helped him when he was at his weakest, and I went through a lot juggling raising my children and caring for my dad without any of their help. Even when I begged them to help me, They just made fun of me for helping my dad and choosing to forgive him. Now, forgiveness is a choice, and I respect their choice not to forgive, but they didn't respect mine to forgive him and added more difficulty to my life. They act like it was either them or my dad, and now are acting like I'm being selfish for not sharing the inheritance my dad left for me. Am I the idiot for not giving some of my inheritance to my brother and sister? You are the idiot. Be prepared to lose your siblings over it. You made your choices, and to be honest, your dad was crappy right up until he died by leaving your siblings out of his will purely for spite. He knew he was a lousy father and chose pettiness in the end. You've chosen your inheritance over your siblings. You may feel justified, but you aren't in the right, and neither was your dad. Your bed is made, and it's time to lay in it. Not the idiot. Your father had every right to leave his property to his one child with whom he had a relationship. It isn't pettiness on the deceased father's part to reward the child who loved and cared for him when he was ill. Dad wasn't crappy to the end. He sought out the OP to make amends. As she said, he cried and apologized for the way he mistreated her. OP and her father built up a relationship. Her siblings had that choice but refused to do so. They also mocked OP, a single mother with 2 children, for having a relationship and caring for her father in his home. And now that her father left her with an inheritance, they demand money and threaten emotional blackmail to make her comply? They're idiots. I don't know if you're an idiot or not. The situation's too complicated for such a simplistic judgment. But I do know you may be furthering the harm done to your siblings. I know that you'll be changing how your siblings see you for the rest of your life. They chose differently than you. They had that right. Everyone must deal with their damage in the ways that they can. It's absurd to suggest that abused people continue to have a relationship with their abuser. That's not why they deserve nothing. They deserve nothing because nobody's entitled to someone's inheritance. Her father could have donated it all to a charity or a stranger, and none of them would still be entitled. So good terms or bad terms, it doesn't matter. I don't understand why they deserve anything. Inheritance is essentially a gift that a dead person is giving. Update. Am I the idiot for not giving my inheritance to any of my siblings? I just want to clarify that I never asked my siblings to come over to my dad's house and care for him. The help I was asking for was to help with their niece and nephew. During the time my dad was sick, there were rules in place where my dad was only allowed one other person at the appointment, and his doctor's appointments were half an hour's drive away. Unfortunately, the babysitter for my children moved, so I was having difficulty finding a babysitter whom I trusted. I also want to clarify that I'm in no way upset at them for not choosing to forgive my dad. I'm upset at how they treated me for the choice I made to forgive, build a relationship, and care for my dad. They made a lot of low blows, using my past abusive relationship as ammunition. Now, I understand that they're dealing with a lot of trauma, and me seeing our dad may have opened some wounds. Maybe they feel like I chose their abuser over them, or they had to treat me the way they did for whatever reason. I don't want my children to be deprived of an aunt and uncle because of money, so I do think the best option is to give them some of the inheritance. I've not figured out the amount I'll give them or how I'll divide things. Your siblings sound like terrible people, not because they wouldn't see or forgive their father, but because they wouldn't help you with their niece and nephew, who are innocent children. Consider it a blessing to get a second chance with your dad and to have your siblings removed from your life. Keep the inheritance for yourself and your children. You can use it towards babysitters, daycare, preschool, and college, for them and yourself. Think of only yourself and your kids right now. Cheeky buggers, tell them they told him to die a lonely man. They chose to cut him off and accept the consequences. Don't expect to have a relationship with them, no matter what you do. They were raised to mistreat people. They're probably going to keep doing that. My kids speak French because my husband is from Quebec, but they also speak English because we live in an English-speaking province. So I can understand it, but my accent sucks. We're currently visiting my in-laws and everything was okay. It was just my nearly adult niece likes to tease me about my limited French. Of course, I laugh it off because she's only joking, and I'm grown enough to not take her seriously. The thing is, for dinner, everyone was spread out. I was sitting with my kids because my son wanted me to feed him. Suddenly, my niece comes up to me, says something and giggles. I was out of it because my son had just spilled his juice, and I was cleaning it up. But the next thing I knew, my other son started yelling at her. He mainly was telling her to shut up. My niece freaked out and ended up slipping on the juice. I immediately helped her up and called her parents, who started screaming at my son after she told them what had happened. I told them to cut it out and that their daughter said something to make my son react like that. My husband then talked to my son, who told them that my niece said something extremely disgusting about me. He refuses to tell anyone what she said. Finally, she admitted to saying something but won't clarify either. My husband told his sister, who said that my kid's probably making crap up and that he's lying and has anger issues. My son does have a problem with anger, but that is a genuine mental health issue he's seeing a professional for. Also, he's a tween. I didn't appreciate that, so I told my husband we were leaving. He agreed and told his sister that he was no longer paying for my niece's future. My sister-in-law and niece freaked. They begged me to talk to him, but I told them that I'd only speak with him if, number 1, niece tells me what she said. Number 2, they apologized to my son, genuinely. They called me a childish, selfish, and immature idiot that needs to stop being so uptight, sensitive, and dramatic over a tiny mistake, and to think about my niece's future as I'm ruining it. Am I the idiot for giving them conditions? They and my husband's other sisters think so. So does my sister, who thinks I should tell them to screw off. At that age, she should absolutely know better than to make rude remarks about people. You and your husband didn't have to fund your niece's future. You tried to do something nice, yet she chooses to be rude and nasty to you? She had to learn firsthand about biting the hand that feeds you. Plus, you gave them a reasonable compromise. Tell the truth and apologize to your son. If they don't want to do that, that's on them. Guess they don't need the money that bad. I think you probably need to remove yourself from this whole situation. Also, if they are, sister-in-law and niece, willing to let niece's future go to crap because they won't apologize, it's because they don't want your help enough. I'd even add another condition, that they apologize to you. Niece is old enough to know what she did was wrong. Even your son was old enough to understand. Niece does not get to bully you and make your family pay for her education. I agree. What she said had to be horrible. Kids will defend their parents from bad words, but based on her son's reaction, her freaking out because he understood, and no one willing to repeat it, it's bad. And to double down by insulting OP and the child, they get $0. I don't understand people who like to joke with those helping them. I booked an Airbnb retreat for me, my husband, my sister-in-law, and her husband about 4 months ago. The Airbnb was not dog-friendly, and I made that perfectly clear as my sister-in-law thinks her dog should be welcomed everywhere, no matter the cost. However, she said that she'd find a dog sitter, and I had no reason to question it. The Airbnb was out of state, about 15 hours away on a really nice beach in Tampa. My husband and I flew down, and my sister-in-law insisted on driving, so she left roughly 24 hours before our flight. She said it was cheaper to drive than it was to fly. So when my husband and I arrived, my sister-in-law and her husband were already sitting in the driveway. When they saw me pull in, she asked if we had got the keys yet, which we had because we met up with the owner along the way, and she said, "Oh good, give them to me quick so I can get Brute inside without being seen." I just stopped dead in my tracks and was like, "Are you kidding me right now?" She kept saying things like, "What? I couldn't find anyone to watch him," or "He's damn old and housebroken. I don't know why anyone would be ignorant enough to say no pets allowed," and kept making excuses as to why she was in the right. My husband's just sitting there completely dumbfounded and shaking his head. I just got back in my rental car and left. I got a refund from Airbnb, dropped the keys off with the woman and explained the situation. She told me I could still stay there because I'd been honest, but I told her no, the place was too big for just my husband and myself, so we ended up staying at a significantly less expensive hotel. I paid almost $4K for the week for the Airbnb, but only spent $1,800 for the week at the hotel. During this whole time, my sister-in-law is blowing us up, saying she can't afford to stay down here. My husband and I make a lot more than sister-in-law and her husband, so we had agreed to pay for everything. Said she didn't bring anything with her to snack on and couldn't afford the prices of anything here and whatever. So I just straight up ignored her because in my eyes, she tried ruining my trip that I 100% paid for. My mother-in-law is down our throats saying the least we could have done was give them some money for food instead of leaving them stranded. And I told her, nope, they can just drive back home and get food there. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. If a person can't find a dog sitter, they stay home. If a person can't afford snacks and food, they absolutely have a 0-0 excuse for going on vacation. Your mother-in-law is also an idiot. She thinks the least you all could have done is give them money for food. You owe them nothing, not even the least. You were paying for a nice, expensive vacation for them, and the least they could have done was not attempt to manipulate you into committing fraud. They couldn't do the least, so why are you now expected to? What BS? If mother-in-law thinks that's the least someone could do, then she's welcome to wire them the money to eat or whatever else she thinks they're entitled to. Give me the keys, let's smuggle the dog in. What? Who does she think would be paying the fine and damage if the dog destroys any furniture or poops there? If Airbnb found out about this, you're providing all expenses paid trip, and they crapped on you. Sister-in-law was going to take her dog into a residence that prohibited it, knowingly. She has zero right to defraud the homeowner just because she believes that anyone not welcoming pets is stupid. But she's incredibly entitled to act like her beliefs and wishes can defraud the person who's allowing her to stay in their residence and force you to be a party to her fraud. My son has a deadly allergy to cats, sudden onset, that almost killed him when he was a child. If someone allergic to dogs had rented the property after you, her ignorance could have very well killed them. There's a reason that people only stay in places that are pet-free and only buy items from pet-free homes. And it's usually not a picky reason. It's usually life or death. Your sister-in-law is an idiot, as is anyone who supports her behavior. My wife has never been a big eater. That's fine, and I don't have a problem with it. What I have a problem with is that my wife is also a greedy eater. She always prefers a large variety of foods together at a time, just in smaller portions. At home, this is annoying, but it's manageable. When we go out to eat, though, it becomes a nightmare. She'll order whatever can get her the most variety of options, ignoring the cost. She will add sides, appetizers, and desserts to her meal, only to eat 1 or 2 bites of each thing she orders. Maybe this would be manageable if she ate leftovers, but she refuses to, so all the foods ends up going to waste. Most of the time, I find myself ordering small meals and eating what remains of her orders to try and justify it, but I don't like 90% of what she orders, and I want to eat my own meal. A week ago, I got incredibly annoyed when she ordered herself a full rack of ribs, an appetizer, only to eat like 20% of each. I only ordered a salad so I could finish the rest off, but I hated the sauces she chose for the ribs, and most of the appetizers went untouched. As we were leaving, I told her that I was sick of spending $40+ on her alone for food she didn't end up finishing. I told her that from now on, she could order 2 things off the kids' menu, or we could work out something we both would enjoy and share. She ignored me and thought I wasn't serious. Well, last night we went out to a wing place. I asked for a kids' menu as we sat down and she got confused. When we started talking and I told her that she either needed to order off the kids' menu or share with me, she got quiet and refused to speak to me and started saying that I was insulting and belittling her. We ended up going out into the parking lot and having a fight before she got an Uber home. She's not talking to me now, and this morning I got a call from her dad screaming at me for what I did. I'm having second thoughts now about this. I had to LOL because you asked for a kids menu for your wife. The next day her dad calls screaming at you. It kind of makes the puzzles fit, in my opinion. LOL. Daddy, my husband said I'm a kid. Oh no, Daddy will fix it for you. Okay, not the idiot because you talked to her about wasting food and money. Is this the first time you've ever expressed your feelings about this? If so, then letting behavior continue until you're boiling over isn't healthy for you or her. I have to agree with you. It's so ridiculous. Maybe that's where her problem lies. Daddy spoiled her and let this behavior of wasting food slide. OP must ask Daddy to support her then. Wasting food like this is a serious pet peeve for me, but I think the execution of your frustration could have been better. I would have taken the leftovers home for her to have the next day and only prepared my own food. Inconveniencing her in private, not public, may work better and won't make you look like an idiot, even though you did warn her. You are the idiot. Why not stop eating out so much? Personally, I couldn't stand that attitude of wasting food, although it seemed to only be about the money wasted, not the actual food. By the way, why are you the only person paying for the food? Doesn't she have any income? Daddy doesn't give her money anymore? Just tell her to pay for her meals. Forcing her to order off the kids' menu is insulting. My husband, 36, and I, 29 female, have lived in our neighborhood for about 5 years. Our house is toward the edge of the complex, and neither of us is very social, so we keep it to ourselves. Unfortunately, the rest of the people in our area tend to do so as well. We had someone who moved in down the street maybe a month ago. I didn't know much about them except I noticed that when we drove by, that it looked like they had young children and some political signs out in front that indicated that we were pretty much on opposite sides of the political spectrum. 2 days ago, there was a knock at the door. I opened it because I was expecting a package, and it was a woman about my age. She introduced herself as the new neighbor and started talking a mile a minute. She told me that she had 3 children, was a stay-at-home mom, and was new to the area, and some other stuff that I don't remember. Then she started peppering me with questions and seemed more disappointed as I answered. She asked if I had children. No. Did we plan on having children? No. Do I know any of the social activities in the area? No. Do I know any local mom groups? Confused? No. Do I ever babysit? Hard no. You get the picture. She seemed to run out of steam and almost pouted and said it didn't seem like we did much at all. I laughed and told her that my husband and I preferred things quiet and kept to ourselves, but that the neighborhood seemed to get busier and socially closer to the center of it because there was a school, so maybe she could find something more what she was looking for there. She said she was hoping to get to know her close neighbors and told me to come over for coffee sometime and I could meet her kids and husband. I thanked her politely but was honest and told her it didn't seem like we had much in common and I couldn't really see us being friends, but I was sure she'd find a good mom group at the playground towards the center of the neighborhood. She got visibly angry and asked if my husband was as big of an idiot as I was, and I thought for a moment, then said, yeah. She stomped off. I might have been an idiot because I was direct and didn't give her much chance, but I don't think we would have mixed well. Am I the idiot? How dare you not appreciate the precious gift their friendship represents? Also, your unwillingness to babysit is very thoughtless of you. She was very aggressive, and some of her questions were incredibly personal and rude. Sometimes you have to be blunt with people who aren't picking up obvious social clues. You're not the idiot. This woman's not looking for friends. She's looking for a free babysitter. It might be worth quietly letting the other neighbors know about her little visit. I know I'd appreciate a heads up if someone like that moved onto my street. Not the idiot, and she's weird. I bet she's an MLM hun too. I blame the real estate agent. Families sometimes get talked into neighborhoods with these nonsense concepts that it'll be a 50s television show where the kids ride bikes and come home when the streetlights turn on, and parents won't have to do any parenting. You maybe didn't have to say that you had no interest in getting to know her, but she was rude first, so I can't say I blame you. And really, if you're banging on people's doors, at least bake cookies or something. I, female 33, found out that my ex-husband, male 37, cheated on me when I was 7 months pregnant with our son. I got a divorce and we share custody of our toddler son. My ex-husband's girlfriend tried to get involved in my parenting several times. She even commented on my son's name, implying that we should agree on a name we all wanted, not just what I wanted, and tried to dictate what he should and shouldn't have. As a result, she started throwing out the stuff of his that I paid for myself. Honestly, it's frustrating because I'm barely getting by with the money I have and cannot afford to buy a replacement for all the stuff she throws out. But my ex-husband says it's her house, and she gets to decide what can and can't enter. I made a crochet blanket for my son with his name on it. This blanket is special to me, and the tools I used to be able to make it cost me money, not to mention the time and effort it took to get it down. I sent my son to stay with his dad days ago, and he wanted to take the blanket with him to sleep with it. I don't know exactly what happened, but when I came to pick him up, he told me his dad's girlfriend took it away from him and threw it out, leaving him with no blanket to sleep with that night as punishment for him not accepting the one she offered. I was furious. I called his dad, but he hung up on me. I sent him a text explaining the situation, but he texted back telling me that I should stop the drama and go look for a job if I had so much free time on my hand, instead of picking on his girlfriend. I felt frustrated. I visited his family, who are good to me, and told them about what their son's girlfriend did. Now, it's worth mentioning that she's been working hard for their approval and to get on their good side. They were shocked at what she did. They all flipped out on her and started calling her out. My sister-in-law took it further by putting this on social media, which made the other family members see what she did. My ex-husband called me, yelling about my pathetic attempt to turn his family against his girlfriend. I could hear her freaking out in the background while he was lashing out at me, saying I ruined every chance she had to have a good relationship with her future in-laws. I hung up and felt horrible, even though I was venting to his family about what happened and felt frustrated. Maybe I shouldn't have told them. I'm not sure anymore since the whole family isn't speaking to her, so that might have a lasting impact on their relationship with her. Am I the idiot here? Not the idiot. Document, document, document. They're abusing your son emotionally and mentally by throwing out his comfort objects to help him transition between houses. And I guarantee that they're saying negative things about you to your son. Get your son to a child psychologist so they can document any issues your son has with your ex and his girlfriend. Then go to court and get the custody agreement changed to state the girlfriend can't be around the child. Depending on the ex's actions, you might even be able to get full custody. Finally, keep your ex's family in your son's life as much as possible, even if you remarry. He deserves to know his family. That's exactly what's happening, and say it louder for the people in the back. She's hurting the child because she cannot hurt OP. As the child grows up, the abuse will get worse. Document it. Contact a lawyer and change the custody agreement before more damage is done to your son. So she uses the kids you have with your ex as a sort of weapon, something to make you angry with. Jesus, what is your ex seeing in that woman? It's one thing if she doesn't want to have your stuff in their home, though I'm not sure a blanket qualifies as such, but quite another to act this way. And she's surprised her potential in-laws aren't glad about it? She has only herself to blame. Yeah, seriously, the ex's girlfriend is his affair partner, and the affair broke up his marriage before his child was born. Any decent person will take issue with that. His family doesn't have any reason to like her based on that alone, and if she's now doing things to hurt their grandson/nephew, that only makes things worse. My wife and I separated about a year ago after 6 years of marriage, but we're not legally divorced yet. We have 2 children together, toddler male and pre-K female. We both had previous marriages and children from those marriages. My kids, tween male and younger tween female, have always had a good relationship with their mother, but my stepson, tween, hasn't seen his biological father in years. We've started seriously discussing the divorce after deciding we can't reconcile. We're happy to split custody of our children and are committed to ensuring they grow up feeling safe, loved, and as stable as possible. Still, my wife also wants me to commit to having a parental relationship with my stepson because he doesn't have any other father figure in his life. I refused. I have nothing against the kid personally, but we've both always acknowledged that I wasn't his father. He never called me dad, and I never asked him to. And to share custody of him like I do my biological kids sounds insane to me. My wife is upset because her son has started talking to her about how he feels he doesn't have a dad. I understand that that must be uncomfortable, But he isn't my son. She needs to talk to his actual father about that. However, I got a mixed response when I discussed this with my friends. Some agreed with me, some agreed with my wife, and some said I should have committed to that for a limited amount of time for the adjustment period. But it's been almost a year since we've lived together as it is. I don't want to ruin this boy's life, but I don't see why he should be partially my responsibility anymore. Am I the idiot? Edit. To clarify, his father was involved in his life until he was 6 or 7, and then he disappeared, so I'm not the only father figure he ever had. Not the idiot. If your soon-to-be ex remarries, you taking any responsibility for her son would make that really weird. Also, if you take any responsibility for the child, you may end up paying child support. So sad for the boy, but she would do better to get him involved with big brothers. Is she going to have an equivalent relationship with your kids from your first marriage? Probably not, right? This whole situation sucks for the boy with an absent dad, but ultimately, that's his mom and dad's responsibility to sort. As cynical as it sounds, this feels like a preamble for more child support after the divorce, supporting all 3 of her kids rather than the 2 you're legally required to support. Child support, college funds, and other costs. It's one thing being a fatherly figure, and another signing to absorb a major financial responsibility and liability. Also, the kid is a tween. Have you considered what he wants? Has anyone asked him? You are the idiot. You divorce wives, not children. He's been your kid for more than half his life. You don't have to share custody, but you shouldn't abandon him. At least a decent person wouldn't leave a child they've cared for years.